My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Tonight on Farage, as Parliament is found to be awash with traces of cocaine, the government is launching a 10-year war on drugs. Is it real, or is it just a government in trouble in the polls and reaching out to their base? We'll debate that at length this evening, plus on Talking Pints, I'll be joined by one of the greatest boxers this country has ever produced, Duke McKenzie.
Good evening, I'm Tamsin Roberts. These are the latest headlines. The Health Secretary says there's now a community of transmission of the Omicron variant across multiple regions in England. Sajid Javid told MPs there are 336 confirmed cases in the UK, and it's being found in people who have no travel history. He says it's too soon to know if the variant will be resistant to COVID vaccines.
Can conclude that there is now community transmission across multiple regions of England. We don't yet have a complete picture of whether Omicron causes more severe disease or indeed how it interacts with the vaccines.
The Education Secretary has announced a major investigation into the circumstances surrounding the murder of 6-year-old Arthur Libinjo Hughes. Nadim Zahawi told MPs all agencies who care for vulnerable children in Solihull will be reviewed. He says while the government can't legislate against evil, more must be done to stop it happening again.
The whole nation is distraught at Arthur's tragic and horrific death. We across this House and across this country find it impossible to imagine how any adult could commit such evil acts against a child. But we will take action wherever we can to stop it from happening again, because we must do more.
2 former police officers have been jailed after taking and sharing photos of murdered sisters Nicole Smallman and Bieber Henry. Dennis Jaffa and Jamie Lewis shared the photos while they were guarding the crime scene in Wembley overnight. They've been sentenced to 2 years and 9 months. The sisters' mother says they're a disgrace to the force and to mankind.
I would say they are more sorry that they got caught than they are about what they did. You know, they've got caught with their hands in the cookie jar and now they're sorry.
The Prime Minister says a Northern power grid will reconnect more than 1,000 customers still without power after Storm Arwen hit by tomorrow at the latest. But there's more bad weather on the way. The Met Office has warned Storm Barra will hit the UK tomorrow. Yellow wind warnings are in place across the UK and a yellow warning for snow covers southern and western Scotland. Tesco warehouse workers and drivers are planning a series of strikes in the lead up to Christmas. More than 1,000 people will take industrial action from the 16th of December in response to the company's offer of a 4% pay rise. Well, those are the news headlines. Now let's get back to Farage.
Good evening. I'm back from Florida And drugs, that's the big story of the day. Now, look, there's no question we have a very serious drug problem in this country. The use of illegal drugs is of a scale that is very hard to believe. A recent report suggests that up to 1 million people take occasionally, or sometimes regularly, cocaine. To me, that's a nonsense. I'd be surprised if the number in London wasn't somewhere near that. I am astonished by just how many people use this drug. And yesterday, we have to give credit to the Sunday Times for exposing that drugs are very much at the heart of the establishment. And they listed out a number of toilets within the House of Commons where traces of cocaine were found. And they were offices very, very close, ironically, to Boris Johnson's office and indeed Priti Patel's office too. So drugs are everywhere. And I'm tempted to say to Boris Johnson and Priti Patel, as they launch a big national 10-year programme to deal with the drug problem, well, once you've sorted out the drug problem in the Palace of Westminster, perhaps I might start to take you rather more seriously on dealing with the drug problem across the whole of the country. And here's Boris. He's been out on patrol. There he is, dressed up in a police uniform. Looks like they must have found a fairly big jacket for him, it seems to me. I was expecting to see him up in the north of England with families who've been without power for the last 10 days. But no, he has been out there on patrol with the police. And I guess that's the photo op that he wants. Priti Patel is talking tough. An article in today's Daily Mail suggesting that those that are found to be recreationally using drugs like cocaine and other Class A drugs could have their driving licences or their passports removed from them. Yes, isn't our Home Secretary good at talking tough? Is this all for real? Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think the Conservatives are in trouble. They're down in the polls. The approval rating of both the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary are going down rapidly. And I think this war on drugs is an attempt to reach out to their base. And I also, my instinct immediately that I saw this story was I don't believe for one moment they'd even be allowed to take away people's passports or people's driving licenses or forms of ID, given, of course, that the one part of Brexit that wasn't done and never gets talked about is we're still signatories to the European Convention on Human Rights. It's the same message Priti's been giving us about dealing with the problems in the Channel, but not actually having the legal means to do so. So my debate this evening, is the Tory war on drugs real? Love to know what you think. Do you think they're genuine? Do you think, like me, it is cynical political manoeuvring? Let me know your thoughts. gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet your opinions on Twitter @GBNews. And of course, you can send in your the Farage questions for the end of the show. Well, joining me to debate this is Diana Constantinidi, a human rights barrister for 33 Bedford Row, and musician and recovering addict Laurie Wright, who's been helping other addicts to go to rehab. So, Laurie, we know there's a very serious problem here, and we'll talk about that and perhaps what some of the remedies might be. But I want to begin, if I can, Diana.
Yes.
OK, it's a big political moment for the Prime Minister, for the Home Secretary, and instinctively, when people hear the government's taking drugs seriously, the majority of the population say, well, yeah, actually, they should be doing this, because, I mean, there's barely a family in the country that hasn't been touched by this problem in some way. But the tough talk.
It is indeed tough talk, isn't it? And
Yeah.
this very much reminds me of this ancient Greek myth, actually, of Plutarch, that they will be tossing the Spartan babies if they did not fit for the future duty to be soldiers. So it feels like this tough talk is about tossing the drug users into the abyss of those disproportionate measures. So indeed, those are tough talk. And the question is this a war or peace? So we really need to consider this very carefully, especially from a human rights perspective.
Yeah, I mean, every year we hear the war on drugs, and we've heard it ever since Tony Blair's time, and every year we've been losing the war on drugs because more and more, it seems to me, more and more people use this stuff. And I have to say, working in London, as I have done, for nearly all of my working life, I'm actually quite shocked. The percentage of young people I know who do or have taken Class A drugs at some point in their lives. Just explain to me then, we are, for good or bad, and you may take a different view on this, but for good or bad, we have a Human Rights Act in this country which incorporated the European Convention of Human Rights into British law back in Tony Blair's time in the late 1990s.
That's very correct, Nigel. And you did say that we're still a signatory of the European Convention of Human Rights. And also it's the Human Rights Act 1998 that actually addresses all these issues. So the first one that we need to look into is that the passport and the driving license, that's an important piece of documentation. And if someone would take that from you, it means that it can become a property for someone else. So this is a very serious statement to make, and we cannot take this lightly. Saying that, the question is now, driving license, how does this fit into the drug war? What I mean by that is driving license, if we're dealing with the driving offence, yes, fair enough, but we're not dealing with the driving offence here.
Well, the idea, I guess, is, or the thinking is, well, number one, it's the mood music. We're going to be really tough. But I guess the idea is that you punish users to such an extent that you frighten other people from using this stuff. And I guess that's what it is. And I guess this is aimed at what they would say middle-class, comfortable drug use. People who might lose their jobs over it or whatever it may be. But under the Human Rights Act, would they be able to do this?
I believe not, Nigel, and I'm saying that's because if you would remove or if you would confiscate, so the question is now, under which legal framework would they actually deal with this matter? So they haven't addressed yet the issue about, is it going to address the first-time offenders? Can we actually apply and to see how long this sentence will be in place? So they haven't addressed the legal issue, and that's actually infringes the first human rights about, we need to know what the law is about it. So not just about talk. But secondly, this is a disproportionate measure. And that's the Human Rights Act. It needs to be appropriate to address the problem in question, which is not.
So if, for argument's sake, some people did have their driving licences or passports taken from them because they've been found to be in possession of a quantity of cocaine, for argument's sake, you as a human rights barrister would be expecting a phone call fairly quickly.
Indeed, yes.
Could be very good for your business. But it does rather back up my feeling and my thinking that this is all political posturing. What is for real, Laurie, is that, this stuff's everywhere. And the fact that it's actually there, 11 locations.
Out of 12.
In the Palace of Westminster.
Yeah.
And I think there was a report a few years ago about the London sewers and just the sheer amount of cocaine.
Yeah, well, it's actually in the water as a result of it, isn't it? They found minuscule amounts that couldn't be eradicated as a result of that. But it doesn't shock me. You were saying about how shocked you were, and I've been around it for so many years, and even in rehab with people from all walks of life, from government officials to police officers, therapists, musicians like myself, teachers. Drugs are just everywhere. They're a part of society, and to continue to punish as opposed to look at the mental health aspect, because we know it's a mental health problem. Or, well, maybe we don't. That's the problem. Maybe we don't know it's a
perhaps taking drugs is what leads to mental health problems.
Yeah, but why do we take drugs excessively in the first place? Underlying mental health problems, feelings of inadequacy.
Do you really think so?
Yeah, genuinely.
I mean, isn't it rather like legal drugs, alcohol?
It is.
Tobacco. I mean, no one starts off as a problem drinker. They start off drinking because it's what people do and it makes you feel good. Isn't most drug use a bit like that?
Yeah, but not everyone will become an alcoholic who's a drinker, and not everyone who recreationally takes cocaine or anything else will become an addict. So it's about looking compassionately at that, I think, of what, for instance, what I think we should do is look at what, like, say, Portugal have done, for instance, in 2001.
Now, that's a decriminalisation programme.
Yeah. And then, one of the good things that's come, the only good thing I can see that's come of this is more money will be put into rehabilitating people under Boris Johnson's new suggestions. But to then kind of double-edged sword that with harsher penalties. It's like 1950s dad getting the belt out, and that just does not help an addict.
All right, but you know, just put this to you. You know, if at the moment, if you're a middle-class professional living in London, for argument's sake, recreationally taking cocaine once a month or whatever it may be, if you're currently caught in an environment like that, you know, you just get a caution. When that's what happens right now. And what Patel is saying in this article and what Johnson is backing up is that, you know, if now getting caught isn't a caution and it is a removal of passports, of driving licenses, perhaps even a threat to your job, that would stop people taking it recreationally, wouldn't it?
Well, no.
No?
I just disagree. I mean, I can only talk from the addict perspective that nothing would have stopped me. And also, not as an addict. If we look at, say, Prohibition America, where they made alcohol illegal, the recreational users still went and found moonshine and speakeasies, for instance. And the same thing just goes on. Whatever happens, people will find it. I know.
But there are people watching this now, all right? There are people watching this now who have got teenage kids.
Yeah.
Right? And they're going to say, listening to you, if we listen to Laurie, if we decriminalise drugs, that will make our kids even more likely to take them.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily. For instance, if you look at Portugal, their numbers have actually decreased since in the last 2 decades of people aged 15 to 25 using drugs, and they decriminalise. It's about just say no didn't work. Like, what do you do as a teenager? You go, oh, I shouldn't do that. Don't press the red button. It's that rebellion. It's that I shouldn't be doing that.
There is a bit of that.
I know from personal experience, when I was in my teens, it was, you know, you shouldn't do that. Why? It's exciting. Let's find out.
But to get people, I mean, you know, you've obviously been through quite a bad cycle with this, and you've gone into rehab, and you're out, you're playing music again, getting out there, gigging, doing well, which is great, and I'm very pleased to hear that story. But to get people into rehab, they first have to get themselves into quite a bad place, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, rock bottom would be where you would have those realisations, or many rock bottoms, as I found before I realised. So yeah, it has to come from the person to choose to want to go to get the rehabilitation. But when they want to go, we need to make sure that is in place. I would argue state funded, because people need to go now. The waiting lists are very long. And by the time you've gone on this waiting list and convinced yourself you're okay after a few days or weeks abstinence, you would end up back in the same cycle. And unless the money's there from family members or whoever else, other funding.
All right, and rehab has worked in your case, but
it did, yeah.
But I'm sure in many cases it doesn't.
Yes, it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work, no.
No, I'm sure that's right. Well, you know, I've listened to what you've had to say. I have to say, I have thought myself in the past, particularly with cannabis, you know, that maybe a royal commission into this where we do study what's really happened in Portugal might be a good idea. I don't think that position has majority support in the country. I think most people still think that it should be against the law. And what we've got is a government here, I think, in a sense, Diana, talking tougher in terms of penalties than any government's talked before. And we've already said that it just isn't going to happen. All the while, we're signed up to the Human Rights Act and the ECHR and everything else. It's just, this is a big push. You know, they're in trouble, they're going down on the polls, they're doing this. But just how much time, you know, police time, court time, prison spaces, I mean, this is a real blight on, it's a real blight on the whole criminal justice system too, isn't it?
It is indeed. And listening to you and to your personal circumstances, it just made me realise that the cases that I've dealt with people that they actually used drug in the past or they've been prosecuted, every case is so different. So it's about addressing all those points, everything that you just mentioned as well, in their sentencing guidelines. So definitely there needs to be a lot of work to be done in order to be able to address all those issues. So it's not just one way, it has many colours.
Yeah, no, thank you both. Well, look, it is a very serious debate. It is a massive and growing problem in this country. And I'm sure a lot of Conservative voters out there have woken up this morning, heard these announcements and thought, hooray, at last Boris and Prissy are doing something. But I think, as we've explained to you, actually, because of the laws we have in the land in place right now, it simply isn't going to happen. And I genuinely do not believe this Tory war on drugs is real. I think it's being done for short-term advantage. In a moment, we will look at the extraordinary case of Elliot Bassey, a man who was
catching some video.
arrested because he wouldn't wear a face mask. What kind of country are we becoming?
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. The next 24 hours sees significant changes take place with our weather. Initially, calm and chilly overnight, but then Storm Barra arrives on Tuesday morning, bringing a spell of disruptive wind and hill snow in some places. Any showers through the evening dying away, many places turning clearer and winds dying down. Under those clear skies with lighter winds, a widespread frost forms across central, northern and eastern parts of the UK. Temperatures in towns and cities down to -1 Celsius, in the countryside even lower than that. But it's the calm ahead of Storm Barra, because this is a rapidly deepening area of low pressure that hits the Republic of Ireland initially during the early hours of Tuesday before sending rain and gales into much of the rest of the UK. So soon enough, it turns wet and windy across Wales, southwest England and Northern Ireland. Some hill snowfall, western hills of Northern Ireland as well. That rain and wind move east through the day, followed by blustery showers, and the wind's really picking up. 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts in exposed western and eastern parts of the UK, 60 mile per hour wind gusts inland. But as well as the heavy rain and the strong wind, we're going to see a spell of hill snow. Northern England, much of central and southern Scotland, wet snow down to lower levels, but disruptive snow over the hills, blizzards and drifting of snow likely, and over some of the higher routes, 2 to 5 centimetres, and some of the higher spots of Northern England and central southern Scotland, seeing 20 centimetres of snow building up. That's all followed by blustery showers, and Wednesday is another very unsettled day with Barra still centred over the UK. It is filling, so the wind's not quite as strong, but still the potential for gales around South Wales and southwest England, 65 mile per hour wind gusts accompanied by blustery showers. Many places seeing those showers come and go through Wednesday. Further showers, mainly in the east on Thursday, with brighter skies arriving in the west.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Is the 10-year Tory war on drugs real? Is it really going to happen, or is it just political posturing because they're in trouble in the polls? I asked for some feedback from you, and Peter via GBNews says we actually have a crime problem instigated by the illegal drug trade. Well, this is perhaps the argument that was being made before the break, that a lot of crime is in order to get money to buy drugs. So maybe there is an argument for a different approach. One viewer says, it's Parliament's war on their own drugs. Well, look, we've got cabinet ministers, of course, who admit to having taken Class A drugs in the past. And yes, I'm with you. Look, if they can't clean up the drug problem in the Palace of Westminster, why on earth should we take them seriously about dealing with the drug problem across the wider country? Jackie says, if the government was serious about cracking down on drugs in the House of Commons, they would implement regular drug tests just like many other employers do. I can't see MPs liking that very much. Theo says, this war on drugs is a distraction on the migrant crises in the Channel. Well, it might be, but they're offering the same solutions, none of which are possible. All the while, we're signed up with the Human Rights Act to European law on this. But that's something they will never, ever admit to. And it seems actually they very rarely get questioned on. Steve on GB Views says, this is just to deflect from the inaction of this government, apart from, of course, the chipping away at our freedoms. Well, talking of the chipping away at our freedoms. Now, it was Salford. It was early afternoon, and Elliot Batty was there, and he filmed this video. And it is actually somewhat extraordinary to think. And yes, I know that masks are back and we've got to wear them on the underground and we've got to wear them at transport hubs and all the rest of it. But there are actually quite a large number of people out there that are exempt from wearing masks, and there's no law that compels them to prove their exemption. So let's have a quick look at what Elliot filmed a couple of days back.
I'm catching this on video.
It's been recorded as well.
It's been recorded.
Well. Okay.
So why are you stopping me? I'm trying to eat a Subway and this man's harassing me.
Okay.
For what?
Are you going to listen?
No, I'm not listening.
You've asked me a question. So if you want
What's the question? No, I don't need you to answer my question. Right. I'm trying to eat my Subway and you're harassing me.
Right. Okay. So the law at the minute...
No, it's not the law.
Right, at the minute, the law at the minute...
It's not the law, is it? Is it the law? No, it's not the law.
It is.
It's recommended.
You need to wear a mask.
It's recommended if you are not exempt.
Right.
I'm exempt, so I don't need a mask.
You're telling me you're
so
exempt.
mind your business, yeah? Mind your business. You don't need to ask me if I'm exempt.
It's your attitude.
No, you don't need to ask me. It's not your business.
What I'm going to do with you now, yeah, I'm going to ask you why you're exempt in terms
You don't need to worry. It's my medical history. I'm not asking your medical history. So don't worry. No, you won't. No, you won't. I'll be going. No, you won't. You don't even have your mask on properly. Look at this guy. He's got his nose out and he's trying to tell me to wear a mask ordering a Subway when I'm exempt for asthma. So mind your business.
Listen to me.
And let me go on my journey.
Right, stay there.
You're detaining me for not wearing a mask. You weren't even wearing a mask in the first place.
So at the minute, right, you're under arrest. For not wearing a mask.
Under arrest.
Well, I'm joined now by Elliot Batty, who filmed that video. Elliot, good evening to you. He's gone. I don't believe it. I'm disappointed because I wanted to find out. Let's have one more go. One more go. Elliot, can you hear me, mate?
Hello.
Hello there. So...
Yep, I can hear you.
It was a Subway. The police had been eating in there. You'd gone in to eat in there. Were they suggesting that you ate wearing a face mask?
Yeah.
And was there any reason?
I'm guessing so. I guess that's the point, yeah.
I mean, is there any reason why they picked on you?
The only really excuse I can think is because I'm a young gentleman and maybe they thought they could force some power onto me.
Right. And so you claimed your exemption, and there are plenty of people with plenty of medical reasons for being exempt. Elliot, what does it make you feel? I mean, they told you that you could be arrested or that a fine would come in the post. And you then exposed this video, and it's had terrific pickup. Have you heard any more from Greater Manchester Police?
I don't have a crime reference number. I've not had an email.
I'm catching something.
I've not had a call. No contact whatsoever.
Why are you stopping me?
OK. And Elliot, finally, and I know we haven't got the best of lines, but finally, how does it make you feel about our country, the way you were treated there?
I don't want to jump ship and say anything too extreme, but to me, it reminds me of how Nazi Germany started.
Well, that's quite a strong comment, Elliot, but I understand you're upset about it, and I want to thank you for posting that video and for coming on tonight with me here on GB News and talking about it, because it is utterly ridiculous. Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you.
Well, Elliot's analysis there may be a little bit harsh, but I have to say, I don't want to live in a country where the police behave like that. I think it's absolutely awful. Now, here is a proper what the Farage moment. Thank goodness we are out of the European Union, because it's pretty clear the direction in which they're going. Austria and Germany have both now declared that vaccinations will be mandatory. And Ursula von der Leyen, there she is, and of course she succeeded my old friend Jean-Claude Juncker. She is the president of the European Commission. She is the most powerful person in the European Union, and she now has come out publicly urging mandatory jabs. It's only a matter of time before this becomes official EU policy. Of that, I am pretty convinced. And the reason I say that I'm pleased we're out of the European Union is I'm pretty confident that we will not go down that route. And the government can encourage people all they like to go out and get vaccines and get boosters, but it is people's right to choose not to do so. I believe that very, very strongly. And I think the creation of a two-tier society, the jabbed versus the jab-nots, is a very, very dangerous thing. So Ursula von der Leyen now pushing hard for mandatory vaccinations. Now, I'm sure that it's purely coincidental, but Ursula von der Leyen, in her declaration of interests, states that her husband, Heiko von der Leyen, is part of pharmaceutical biotechnology. That's the sector that he works in. And specifically, he works for Orgenesis Inc., an American company who specialise in cell therapy development. And even before they fully developed their COVID vaccine platform, I'm really pleased to announce that this firm is doing very, very well. Yes, Orgenesis have reported a 425% increase in their revenues for the third quarter. Well, in my opinion, I believe regulators ought to check this out, don't you? The Channel crisis was mentioned a few minutes ago, and it's been quiet today. The weather's not been right for the dinghies. But a tweet that was put out by the Sun's political correspondent, Jonathan Riley, says this: the Home Office spent £10,664.27 on Domino's pizzas to feed small boat arrivals in Dover. And that was in the month of September alone. I mean, can you believe it? And I have to say, somebody who's a viewer of GB News did tip me the wink about this, that it was a regular thing, that Domino's pizzas were being brought in to the processing centre in Dover, and indeed many other well-known food chains as well. It's just a very small part of the overall price we're paying for what is going on in the English Channel, but I think it makes a lot of us feel pretty mad. Now, I like to think that one of the successes that we've had with this show has been Talking Pints. A massive cross-section of people who come in and take part in it and speak frankly. Well, talk about what the Farage. I couldn't believe it, because this morning, Talking Pints the concept has made it to the House of Commons, and it happened in no less than the guy that leads the House, Jacob Rees-Mogg. Have a look at this in Westminster this morning.
News is marvellous. I went on with Mr. Farage, and it was called Have a Pint with Nigel or something, and I took along my own cider, which we both enjoyed. So I would encourage people to watch GB News and to go on it. I think the Honourable Gentleman, the member for Nehilling and Unyar, would be a star performer on GB News, and I hope that he will take them up to his farm so that they can watch his lambing in the spring, for which we have specially dedicated recess times to be convenient for him.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Well, having been promoted this morning in the House of Commons by Jacob Rees-Mogg, we're here. The GB News pub is open. It's Talking Pints, and I'm here with somebody who arguably achieved more as a boxer than anybody else born in this country in modern times. I'm joined by Duke Mackenzie, but before I introduce him, let's have a look at him in action.
And Magri nearly went over, and suddenly Magri is over. And suddenly pulled out of the world title fight with Chocolada.
Well, we all know what Duke Mackenzie went on to achieve. 3 times a world champion at 3 different weights.
Fantastic. Duke, welcome to the programme.
I appreciate that. I really do, Nigel. Is it OK to call you Nigel?
Of course it is. I watched that
great.
fight.
Oh, did you?
I watched that. I watched you put it Magri down.
Okay.
I remember that very well. I've always enjoyed boxing.
Right.
And you know, what got you into it?
I'm one of 7 boys in my family, and my older brother Clinton, he started us off in boxing, and then my other brother Winston started, and my brother Dudley started, and then they all started, and it was like the blind leading the blind. And if my older brother would have swung a golf club or been an actor, I'd have followed him into that. And my brother was a hugely successful amateur boxer, Clinton, went to the 76 Olympic Games representing Great Britain. Brother Dudley went to the first World Junior Championships in Yokohama, Japan, age 17, representing Great Britain. My brother Winston also was an England international. My amateur career wasn't really that great in comparison to theirs. I never won an Egg Cup as an amateur. I wasn't very good. I didn't have the dedication or the sort of aptitude, really, just to do what needed to be done. I used to get off on my brother. When my brother won, you'd get like a trophy and badges. So I used to get his badges and put it on my shorts and one thing and another. But then the bell would go and I'd get found out. So I didn't really have a great amateur career, but then I was quite tenacious, and my brother introduced me to guy called Mickey Duff, who at the time was what, say, Arsene Wenger was to Arsenal. Mickey Duff was that of the boxing fraternity, and he changed my life forever. And then I got a great coach, Colin Smith, who trained me for a period of time as an amateur, but then Colin went off, and then when I turned pro, I'd had 13 fights before I went back to him. But then I went back to Colin, and I begged him to train me, as I did Mickey Duff, my manager, who turned me down initially, and I'd seen every other promoter stroke manager in the country before Mickey Duff would manage me. And I became a bit of a stalker, really, to be honest with you, Nigel.
And suddenly you were quite good at it.
And then all of a sudden, Mickey took me on this whistle-stop tour of America, and I'm sure that enhanced my belief, certainly, in my ability. And he took me everywhere. Like, we boxed in Vegas, Los Angeles, Reno, Atlantic City, New York, Miami, and then we were all over Europe boxing as well. And then, you know, he had like a domino effect. And the next thing I know, I'd gone like maybe 3, 4, 5 fights unbeaten. Then I boxed for a British Championship, and I won that.
Yeah.
And then I got a European rating to fight Charlie Magri for that European title, as you just saw there.
Yeah.
I won the European title shortly after that. I think that was my 13th fight, 12th, 13th fight. Then I had several sort of international fights, 10-round fights, a couple of European title defences abroad and both here in England. Won them, and the next one I was like ranked #1 in the world. And with the WBC, I think WBA rated me, and then I got a shot at the IBF flyweight champion, a guy called Rolando Bohol from the Philippines. And then it was like more sort of shock horror for me personally. But my brother Dudley installed so much confidence in me. If Dudley told me I could have beaten Mike Tyson, I'd have believed him. I had that much confidence in him. And I can remember waking up on fight day, crying, you know, uncontrollably at times, because the realisation and the magnitude of the fight that was actually on me at that point, it was a lot for me to sort of take on board. Anyway, but Dudley turned up and I was fine. And then next thing I know, I was like crowned the IBF flyweight champion of the world.
Pretty cool.
It was
lad from Croydon.
It was Croydon, born and bred, still live in Croydon. I've had a fantastic career, and when I look back on my career, sometimes I have to pinch myself because, like I say, I'm one of 6 boys and 1 girl in my family, and all of my brothers have had successful careers in one way or another. But I've had a lot of boxers that I know, in my opinion, had more ability than I did, or equally the same amount of ability as I did, but never quite made it. So I'm one of the lucky guys.
But you won world championships at 3 different weights.
Yeah, I've been...
to a non-boxing audience, how does that work?
Yeah, well, I was really, really lucky to be quite tall for my first weight division, flyweight, 5'7". An average flyweight's 5'2". A big size flyweight is 5'2". I was considered quite a bit of a freak for the weight division that I first boxed in. I was a good size bantamweight, that's 8 stone 6. But when I moved through the weight divisions, being able to eat and drink the foods that I loved and just to be able to live like a normal human being, my manager used to say to me all the time, a happy fighter is a good fighter. And once I could eat and drink the foods that I loved and, you know, replenish and not have to drain myself to make weight and one thing and another,
Otherwise, it's like being a jockey and having to starve yourself.
Yeah, listen, I've often likened jockeying to being like a professional boxer because you're constantly on the scales, you're constantly watching your weight and what you eat and what you drink. So, but then I moved to bantamweight, and then I was just very, very fortunate. Well, like I said, I picked up another world championship at bantamweight, and that's probably winning the bantamweight world title out of the 3 championships that I won. That probably gave me the most satisfaction because I was just ranked outside. I wasn't even given a hope in hell of going the distance, let alone pulling off a good victory against Gabi Canizales, who was a formidable fighter at the time. And but you know, for 12 weeks, I ate, slept, drunk, walked, talked to him. Never went out my front door unless I was going to the gym. I never went out the front door. I was going to do my run in the morning. You know, I was in bed every night at 6 o'clock, even on a summer's evening. And, you know, and up at 5 o'clock every morning doing my runs. And go, you know, just eating, sleeping, walking, talking, trying not to look boxing, but just applying myself properly. Yeah. And then I won the Bantamweight Championship of the world and then defended that several times. Lost it. But then every time I lost in a major championship fight, Dudley would say to me, he'd call me Little Man, that was like my pet name, family name. He'd say to me, Little Man, he'd say to me, there's another belt out there for you, you just got to go and get it. And then Dudley would like help me to reapply myself, rededicate myself. get my mind back on the game, and then just do what needed to be done. And
I mean, somehow those lighter weight boxing titles don't get quite the same level of fame and glamour that the heavyweight ones do. Because actually, your achievement. No, I'm being serious. I mean, your achievement, there's very, very few British boxers ever lived who've done what you've done. And you were very well known in the sporting world. But I don't think outside of it you perhaps quite got the recognition, frankly, that you deserved.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's life. It's not something I can change. Would I change it? I don't really know. I fancy myself as a bit of an actor, to be honest with you. Just ask my wife, she'll tell you. But no, listen, it's... in the lighter weight divisions, there's obviously a lot more skill involved. There's a lot more...
And it's faster.
It's faster, it's action-packed, and, there's nothing that any other fighter can't do on the planet that the lighter weights don't do, and more so even, because they fight at a higher intensity and a higher work rate. So I don't really get too excited now when I watch boxing. It's not really my reality anymore.
But you've done commentating.
But I have done quite a lot of commentating over the years with Sky and ITV and BBC, and been all over the world doing it, to be honest with you. So I've had a fantastic...
And you've come out of it, Duke. You appear fairly undamaged by it all.
Well, I'd like to think so. I'd like to think so. Yeah, I used to pride myself on not getting hit, but you can't get in the water without getting hit. Unfortunately, a lot of boxers do suffer with, hard times after their careers. Yeah. It's hard to make that transition from, being a world champion 1 minute and next minute you're not a world champion, and then you've got to come back to reality and get yourself a day job. But listen, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people who've been at the top of their field and suddenly they're not, age, etc., and they do suffer all sorts of problems. But you're doing your bit with the Ringside Charitable Trust, aren't you?
Yes, I'm involved with the Ringside Charitable Trust, they're currently funding, raising funds and awareness for retired boxers that have fallen on hard times.
And there's quite a few of them.
There is quite a few, and sadly, there are quite a few boxers that have fallen on hard times. Some really well-known boxers, more well-known than I am, in the boxing world, and these guys need help, And I'm really surprised that there isn't enough help within the boxing fraternity. People actually that have made money off of fighters, giving money and time back to fighters that desperately need it. So,
and are these people who've been damaged perhaps a bit by boxing as well?
I think they've just been damaged by life. I don't think there's anybody that's not gone through a divorce or a bereavement or anything like that hasn't experienced what most boxers do. But boxers have got the adage of having had a really hard career on top of just living an everyday life, on top of that, and suffered, with mental health problems. So it's really is close to my heart, the Ringside Charitable Trust, and I do whatever I can to help promote that organisation to get them as much recognition as possible, where they can raise sufficient funds. They're currently trying to raise money for a care home for retired boxers, specifically for retired boxers. That they're trying to raise money for, to get that all together, so boxers have got a place to go and live, I should say. And there's boxers I know now, not on a personal level, that are homeless, that are living on the streets, and these guys they're falling apart and they need help. And the only way you can do that is by raising awareness, gaining enough sort of capital so that we can get, all come together as a boxing family, if you will, and look after these guys.
Now, I drive in through South London every day over Crystal Palace Hill. So I drive pretty close to, often straight past, the Duke Mackenzie Gymnasium.
Oh, the jukebox.
And I've not yet been in.
No, you've never turned up, Nigel.
No,
I'm waiting for you to turn up. It's all non-contact. It's all a bit of fun. It's just keep fit.
I mean, this is interesting. So, what's the age range of people that turn up there?
So my youngest is sort of 7, 8 years old, and we do just boxing classes, just non-contact boxing classes. It's just to keep fit, predominantly. And my youngest is 8. My oldest is probably about, I'd say 78.
Wow. I love your advertising blurb. Whether you don't know a meat hook from a right hook.
My daughter wrote that.
Oh, it's very good.
Yeah, my daughter
Well, you're
wrote
a
that.
self-confessed pro.
Yeah.
We'll show you how. So this is about using boxing As it means to get fit.
Just purely as a keep fit programme.
Yep.
Anybody can do it. Like I say, from 7 to 78 or 88 or 98. I've put together a boxing programme where people can just come along, use the gym on a daily basis. It's a members-only gym, by the way.
Yep.
And because I know who's coming in, who's coming out.
Yep.
And I'm there every day, and I plan my trade. It's a lot of fun. You should come down sometime.
Well, I tell you what, I will pop in. I'm
going to hold you to that.
No, well, he probably is, you know. But the other thing, Duke, I'm really keen to talk to you about, and you have spoken about this before, is, you know, you're born in the early 60s in Croydon, and sport, and I'm, you know, a year younger than you, sport is everything, isn't it? Sport is everywhere. You know, what do young boys want to do, and girls too? We want to play sport. We want to play football. We want to play cricket. We want to, you know, join the local rugby club. We want to, you know, go to a gym and do boxing or whatever it is. And kind of sport was everywhere. And kind of we all played sport. I mean, nearly all of us played sport.
Yeah.
You know, to some level. But you've got some thoughts on kids and sport now and what's going on.
Sure. I mean, you know, when I was a kid, you know, there was, like you say, there was youth clubs everywhere. On every street corner there was a youth club. So you didn't get into, it wasn't, you know, I'm sure drugs were there, I'm sure smoking was there and drink was there, and all the bad habits that kids have today, they were all there then, but kids had something to do then, you know? Going down to a local sports club when I was a kid, they had boxing, football, you know, every sport under the book. Boxing, football, tennis, you name it, snooker.
Yeah.
And you could go there all day, pay your subs, and you could spend all day there just doing what you loved, and you'd keep yourself out of trouble. You know, I train a lot of kids in my gym, and they come in all the time. And I'm not going to say that they don't want to do it. They're almost malnourished for it. They love to come in and just work out.
Because you've given them the opportunity that is not available.
Because I've given them, yeah, exactly, Nigel. I've given them the opportunity to come in.
Are the schools not getting this right?
They're not getting it right. You know, there was a time when I worked in several schools training young kids, but it seems to have died off now. And why they don't bring back schoolboy boxing, I don't know, because that's how it was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You wasn't going down your local school for a punch-up with anybody because, you know, they had boxers in their school. So that was just...
And it also, I guess, teaches self-discipline.
It teaches you life skills. Boxing really teaches you life skills. It teaches you almost how to be a man. It teaches you how to carry yourself because, you know, if you can handle yourself, if you can look after yourself in a boxing ring, you're not going to go down the road looking for trouble. You're not going to start a fight. And you're certainly not going to, you know, pick a fight with anybody because you'll be more intent to walk away from a fight or even break fights up. But today, sadly, it's not like that.
Is it because kids are playing computer games all day? Or?
Yep. Kids are on the computers all day and, you know, they've got mobile phones and there's all these different distractions for them. And it's just they get it so easy. There's no real discipline involved and that's a really sad part.
So what do we have to do, Duke, to get kids back training, playing sport? What do we have to do?
They got to introduce schoolboy boxing back into schools.
Okay.
You know, for male and female, because, you know, women do boxing as well now. Yeah. And it's worldwide. And I'm sure if they reintroduce it into schools, you know, even colleges even, there'll be a huge uptake because boxing is probably as popular in this country as football is. You know, you get massive crowds for all the major fights now. And, you know, you can stream it on TV.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been to a few fights recently. And I was at the Joshua fight and I've been with Derek Chisora a couple of fights. And I love the evening out. And you're right, they're big crowds.
Yeah.
The trouble is, you know, it used to be accessible on the BBC or on ITV. It was on, you know, Harry Carpenter, Red Gutteridge and all that.
Yeah.
And now it's, you know, quite an expensive thing to watch on Sky, isn't it?
Yeah.
But despite that, you still think boxing is very popular?
Boxing is popular. I think if they ban boxing or there's no more schoolboy boxing, then boxing will grow underground, and that's when it will become very dangerous. You know, boxing's a very it's such an intense sport, not only mentally but physically. So without the right supervision, you know, it's going to fall by the wayside, and you can get hurt, very seriously hurt.
Well, I'll tell you what, Duke, amazing career.
Thank you.
You know, I was a fan of yours all those years ago. I used to watch you religiously, and good luck with all you're doing today, and thank you for joining us here.
Thank you for inviting me on.
That was Duke Mackenzie on Talking Pints. Great stuff. OK, we're coming towards the end of the show, but it is time for Barrage the Farage. Yes, where you send in your questions that I do not get pre-sight of. So here goes. A viewer, anonymous, that always worries me, asks, why are the government not recognising natural immunity in relation to to COVID? Well, it would seem that we all have to be jabbed, and then we have to be jabbed again, and then we have to get a booster. And in 6 months' time, they'll tell us we have to have another booster, and then probably next Christmas, another booster too. I have to say, I was all for having the vaccine, and I went and got it at Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, is where I went for mine. I was all for it, but I do, yes, as you say, it's as if the natural immunity argument never seems to get made. And hopefully, Omicron, which everyone's now saying, does not bring with it serious symptoms of very many people. Hopefully, that will give us a great degree of natural immunity. At least I hope so. Gareth asks me, did you do anything else with Donald Trump last week other than the interview, like a game of golf or a meal? Well, number one, I would never disclose anything privately that was said or done with Donald Trump. But actually, no, there wasn't time for much more than we did. It was pretty much a quick in and a quick out, regrettably. But I can't wait to go back to Mar-a-Lago. I love it there. Marilyn asks, how do you deal so well with jet lag? I don't believe in jet lag. I mean, if you've gone to the West Coast, right, and it's 8 hours, you will get jet lag. But frankly, given the sort of life that I've lived, you know, getting up at ridiculous hours in the morning, some nights going to bed at 8 o'clock, other nights going to bed at 3 o'clock the next morning, I've never found jet lag to be anything of a problem from the East Coast at all. Bonnie asks me, who is your secret crush? No answer. No, can't do that. Not going to deal with that. Because if I said anything, it wouldn't be secret now, would it? Thanks, everybody. I hope you found the debate on drugs interesting. If the government were really serious about this problem, they wouldn't be making promises they simply can't keep. Coming up next tonight here on GB News, it's Colin Brazier. First, though, let's see what the winter weather is going to do.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. The next 24 hours sees significant changes take place with our weather. Initially, calm and chilly overnight, but then Storm Barra arrives on Tuesday morning, bringing a spell of disruptive wind and hill snow in some places.